Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, genders of all ages, welcome to episode 8 of Alive on One, the Transformers.cards podcast. I am your host, the God King, Lord Zero, and as usual, I have Hawkhammer back here with me.
Yeah, I actually exist this time. Woo!
Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about TFCon, Wave 10 is finally released, the upcoming Encounter 2 tournament, and team recruitment.
And if this is your first time joining us and you have no idea what's going on here, basically, this is the show where we go through what's going on in the community, what's going on behind the scenes, whatever bullshit I'm up to on a particular month, all the good stuff.
As always, though, first we have Card of the Month. This month is the Dark Spark from the recently released Wave 10 from March 25th. The main reason we picked this as the Card of the Month was because honestly, it's the card that underwent the most changes in Wave 10, since it started off as an upgrade originally, and then was changed to a stratagem very shortly before we went to beta.
Yeah, that was a whole saga. Like, again, the intent of the card was always to give Decepticons some sort of additional, like, support in the form of a parallel to Matrix, but the original battle card concept ended up being a bit of a problem, and after a whole lot of tinkering around, we decided it would just be easier to make it a stratagem, because that also wouldn't screw with Metroplex shenanigans, because Metroplex has got to be considered, because people have figured out how to break him.
Exactly. Ozzy and Wheeljank really thought Decepticons needed their own orange-blue card, but at the same time, most of the team is in agreement that we shouldn't add any more orange-blue cards to the game. We have 2 double orange, 2 double blue, and 2 orange-blue, not counting star cards and trait-locked icons at least. So I think changing it to a stratagem that just reconfigures how the original Matrix worked was a great idea.
And if you think that the 1 damage to one of your leaders thing doesn't seem like that big of a downside, you have not been in the community for long enough, because Alive on One very much is a thing. I haven't seen it break a whole lot of games, but it has caused some problems.
Yeah. And even that, though, we did try to keep it minimal. We didn't really want the stratagem to have a high cost, but we do want all stratagems to have a cost. TFCon LA was a few weeks ago, and while no one from the design team was there, it seems like there was still a good amount of TCG action going on. A fan group provided packs of cards to all attendees who bought tickets, and that's awesome. We always love it when people push the game in any way possible. Hopefully I and maybe some other team members will be able to make it out next year. After months of feeling like we were right at the finish line, Wave 10 is finally released.
Get the censor bar ready. Hallelujah!
There weren't a lot of changes since the last beta update, but there were a few. The biggest one is that we added a new battle card, Takedown. It's a bit similar to Tripwire, but can work against Enemy.
So yeah, Enemy was an interesting case. We might as well talk a little bit about what was going on with him, and this is actually a longer story of development, so for anyone who's wondering if we actually do change things during beta, yes. So, yeah. Enemy originally did both basically cause certain cards to have to be targeting him, although I've mentioned this before, I'll mention it again, it has to have the exact phrasing to an enemy, period. If it's missing the period, it doesn't count, so just keep that in mind when you're playing Enemy. But also, he had Brave, which, when combined with Moaner Master, made him a bit of a problem, so we removed the Brave. That solved a lot of the issues with him, but there was still some weirdness going on with Tripwire, and given the fact that there are multiple options, kind of, to have alternatives to direct damage in the form of move damage, our thought process was, what if we did a similar thing for Tripwire to act as a decent side grade, so there's a bit more options there to deal with that, and also anything that just does have that inherent damage protection, so you can still get damage through, even if the tap is relevant or not. You get what I'm saying here, so that is really how Takedown came to be, and it admittedly was a fairly late addition in the grand scheme of things, but in our testing, it ended up proving to be quite the side grade. Not in the sense that it was stronger or anything, but just it ended up being a card that pretty much perfectly encapsulated what we were shooting for. It doesn't overpower Tripwire by any stretch of the imagination, especially considering it doesn't have, like, one of the stronger combat icons, because Black Icon. But all in all, it has been proving to be a decent addition.
Yeah, and another thing that kind of really helped spark its development was the realization that Tripwire was the main card people were using against white teams, by a large margin too. We looked at the tournament data over the last year, and among the 6 most used cards in main decks, Tripwire was the only niche use card. It was third after Bashing Shield and Energon Axe, and tied with Pocket Processor. All of those are just very good general use cards, regardless of who your opponent is, while Tripwire is usually just for white teams. That kind of data suggested that maybe we needed to add a little more support against white teams.
Right, because especially, like, pretty much since the beginning of since the beginning of Season 2, like, the wide meta has just been insane. I mean, it started with Devastator in the Season 1 OI, and then Steven Moss showed up and just wrecked everybody with 5 wide good stuff, and then it just became an arms race on that front from there, outside of that blip I had with Double Primes in Encounter 3 of Season 2. So definitely having more anti-wide support is a good thing. Of course, there is still a place for wide in the game. Let's establish that now. We're not going to try to nuke wide from the game. That would be an incredibly short-sighted decision. But do not be surprised if you see more, how do I phrase this? More, you know, like those hammers that doctors have to test your reflexes? Essentially, don't be surprised if we make more of those style cards where it's just enough to kind of, you know, keep them a little in check.
Yeah. Moving on, we also updated Hydraulic Grapple. It had its art changed, and we also dropped the focus for plan.
Yeah, the reason for that was in the beta, we don't know how we missed this earlier on, and I think Z especially was quoted it multiple times and kind of kicking himself for this, but we realized that it was kind of crowding out acute reflexes, and that seemed like a bit of a problem, so the shuffling around with that happened, and now it is very much not crowding that space, so there is still a decision point.
Yeah, and the plan really works well with Hydraulic Grapple. It helps you get that extra white in for the double white flip.
Says the Mirage player.
Hey, I'm just saying. Then for Deflection Barrier, we dropped the black icon for a white, just to make it so we have more choices, so it's not an automatic choice. There's a lot of great white cards, so you have to choose between one or the other.
Exactly, and I mean, hopefully we do not have a repeat of the turnabout snare situation, because we have seen, even if a white icon card, even if a card has a white icon, if it's good enough, it will just automatically go into every deck. But with Deflection Barrier having a bit of a curve in terms of how effective it is, you definitely have to plan for it. So if you are automatically throwing into your deck, you're most likely having been building around the thing, so there's some trade-offs there.
Yeah. Then the last card to have its text changed was Cloudriker's alt mode. It now also has damage counters can't be moved from an enemy to this. We thought his alt mode needed just a little more, and this also played well with his fiction that he flies so high other planes can't reach him, and planes are often cards that move damage. And then also, we changed the art of a few battle cards, and many cards had their rarities adjusted.
Just in case, you know, sealed play or rarity-dependent formats come in the future, so that's something we gotta keep in mind.
We always try to balance that stuff out. The second encounter of the season is right around the corner, and signups are open right now. This will be a full constructed tournament, besides the usual ban list, nothing special about it. But it will be the first encounter. Yeah, it will be the first encounter with Wave 10.
Woo! More cards! Yay! Time for the meta to be thrown into chaos!
Do you have any expectations from it? Anything you think that Wave 10 is going to change?
Let me pull up. Oh, wait, that was an Odd Squad event. I gotta go to the OI to figure out what the heck the meta is right now. It's been a hot minute.
Been a little bit.
Yeah, so let's see. So we're going back to the OI. The top 4 there were Metroplex, Pounce, Double Primes, and Devastator by the looks of things, I believe that is. Let me go take a look here just to confirm I am seeing that right. Yes, it was Devastator. So, think about everything in the context of the battle cards that were floating about. Deflection Barrier is one that I think is definitely going to have a bit of power for double primes and count shenanigans because, well, both of those are defensive decks and they're already pretty decent as is. I'm not too sure to what extent though, because they don't rely on tough as much, but in my experience, or at least in theory, they can be built that way, so that is very much a possibility. So Deflection Barrier is something to keep an eye on. Chaos of War also could be interesting there, just because of the fact they now have a response to Heat of Battle, or an alternate, you get what I'm saying there. Cerebro Shell is an interesting one, doing a damage to an enemy and forcing everybody to attack them, so that could always be interesting. Of course, thankfully, this got changed during the beta to have a Insecticon only green, so this doesn't just replace Zap or anything like that, so
Right.
it is a weaker Zap in that regard, but if you're playing it in Bugs, Bugs could have a bit of a comeback with this thing, because just being able to get around stealth shenanigans can always be clutch at times. Looking through additional things,
I'll be curious to see if anyone tries to still do the enemy Motormaster combination.
yes, again, that did get nerfed because of enemy losing Brave, but that still can be a powerful combo, though with Takedown, if that's in the format, that could potentially cause some problems, so something to keep an eye on there. Fusion Pistol's probably going to be a somewhat ubiquitous card, because again, blue-black weapon, so that's a fun time. Hydraulic Grapple, Z mentioned it earlier, but I don't think it's going to have a whole lot of success outside of meme status with Mirage shenanigans that Z continues to push for some reason, and watch as I'm immediately wrong on that in about 10 minutes. Salvaged Cannon, that's an interesting one. Like, it's a star card for +3, and of course, we still see plenty of spotlights floating around. I don't really know how Autobot decks are gonna react to this. Like, Heroic Resolve is just so good, but I feel like there might be some builds floating around where this potentially could be slotted in just to have a unconditional +3. But actually, now that I say that, I remember Energon acts as a thing, so we'll see how that goes. And then that's really it for battle cards, aside from maybe Torture Chamber enabling some brutal conditioning shenanigans, but I feel like Exhaust is just so good with that maybe not, I don't know, but Torture Chamber could be interesting. Torture Chamber actually could be fun in Insecticons, now that I think about it, because Ransack is a thing, and if you've been in this community for any amount of time, you'll know Ransack is my boy. He's still my favorite character card in the game, and that's saying something considering what Devastator's done for me, but yeah, moving over to Stratagems, honestly, the Darkspark obviously is going to be interesting for a lot of Decepticon strategies, but outside of that, I really don't know if anything is going to hit, like, competitive status. We'll find out, but just looking at everything, there's nothing that immediately sticks out potentially, so...
Yeah.
And then moving over to characters, Wild Rider, there has been on and off discussions regarding Menasaure's competitive viability for a while now, just because the action pool is constantly increasing.
I was thinking the same
Wild
thing.
Rider could potentially be the thing to put him over the top. Don't quote me on that, though, because he is a bit squishy, so that could be a slight liability, but we'll see what happens.
I can also
Rack
see,
and
yeah, exactly what I was gonna say. I can see someone trying to do Rack and Ruin too. For this
Yeah, I
event.
mean, with the amount of shenanigans Evil Gem managed to pull off with that, like, if there is one character that I would be willing to put money on besides Enemy for seeing play, it is probably Rack and Ruin, just
Agreed.
because, like, again, the ability to get extra damage thrown around. I said it earlier in the show, Alive on 1 is a meme for a reason, so having anything to help deal with that is just incredible. Plus, he gets all the melee shenanigans, so that's always a positive. Enemy, of course, being able to, you know, screw with your opponent's direct damage or certain things, like, that is always handy, although I do feel like that may be more of a sideboard choice at this point, so we'll see how that goes with him lacking Brave. And then Broadside, I may be biased here because I had an absolute blast with him in all of the Wave 10 testing events and just in general, but I feel like there's some untapped potential there with him. I just don't know what it is. I don't think I'm comfortable enough to roll up with Broadside for Encounter 2, but I definitely will be toying around with him behind the scenes because I feel like I want to... Honestly, I may just be coping here, but I want to believe something is there. Like, Broadside is just inherently so friggin' cool.
Yeah. Do you know what you're going to play?
I have no idea yet. I've still got to sort that out. When does the registration close so that way I know when I have it to figure this out?
An excellent question. Registration for this event is currently open right now, and it will close on April 24th. We're having a bit of a long registration period because I will be out of country.
Yeah, he's abandoning us for a month, so
Yes.
It's gonna be an absolute free-for-all. Me and Naga are probably gonna get into a fist fight. Evil Gem's gonna be watching in the background, having a panic attack. Ozzy and Wheeljank are just gonna be like, why do we hang out with these idiots? And Tecto's just sitting there going, huh, neat.
Yeah. I'm leaning towards probably Scorponok again, just because I love him. I was considering Terracons again. They're always fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Again, there could be a situation where, honestly, this could go one of two ways, in my opinion. Either everybody looks at the Wave 10 stuff and just implicitly is like, yeah, I'm not seeing anything, and just defaults back to the norm. Or it could go the opposite way on that pendulum, and just everybody goes, ooh, shiny new stuff, and just everything is Wave 10, and it just causes an absolute just disaster in terms of nobody having any idea what the meta actually is, and something weird just comes out of nowhere, and then Encounter 4 something just ends up being a total clusterfuck.
So again, just to repeat, signups are open right now. This will be a webcam event. It will also give points towards our big end of season Omega Invitational Tournament. With Wave 10 now complete and Wave 11 still needing a lot of testing and refinement, we are opening team recruitment. The way we work is that we bring you onto the team as a playtester. You don't need a ton of experience, but you do need to know the basics of how the game plays. Our testing is done a bit casually, where you play against other team members and record your games on a special page on Transformers.cards. Depending on how active you are, after a few months, we'll talk about promoting you to a game designer, where you can have more of a say in how cards turn out. So if you've ever wanted to make your own cards and help on the design a set, you can, but you have to help out first.
And here's an asterisk I will add with that. When we say contributing, there's really no way for me to say this without sounding, for lack of a better term, a bit like harsh, but what we want to avoid is people trying to join the playtesting team for the sole goal of getting their cards developed, because that tends into, in our experience, lead to a whole lot of butting heads, and it's just not enjoyable for everybody. So if you're interested in this, we do ask that your number one priority is the advancement and continuation of the game. And if you continue to commit to that dedication, that's when the conversation of do you have card ideas can be opened up.
Yeah, I always say finding people who have card ideas is extremely easy. Finding people who want to work with the team to balance and polish the game is difficult, though. And that's what we're really after.
And, like, I will throw myself as an example here. Like, I never expected to be in a high-ranking leadership position with this. When this whole thing started, and when I joined the Wave 6 beta, my MO was just to figure out the last line of defense, and I just ended up working my way up to the top of the chain, just by me just wanting to keep this game going. So, like, we know those people exist. I was one of them.
So if you have a passion for this game and you're willing to actively help with it, you can go to Transformers.cards/recruitment for more information. Then our last little point of news. Ozzy and I were just guests on the Transmissions podcasts. We talked about how the community has kept this game going for nearly 5 years, what got us into it, and there's even a teaser for something we just started working on. So I want to give a big thanks to Mike and Dr. Pants for having us on. They said the episode should be up in about a week, and once it is, there'll be a link to it on Transformers.cards. And that's it for this episode. Like I said, I'll be out of country for a few weeks, so next episode, Hawk here is going to catch me up on everything I missed while I was gone.
Oh boy, I'm gonna have to pay attention to everything. Woo, I'm kidding. That'll be fine. But you're leaving me in charge. Bold move.
Yeah.
As always, though, if there's anything you want to say to us, comments about what's going on with the community, or you have a random deck list you want us to discuss, those feedback points can be left in the comments of this video, or at Transformers.cards/aliveon1. If it is done at the latter link, it is anonymous.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Until next time, toodles.
Peace out, y'all.